Nelson, Katie Howe, Greg Gifford, Steve Linney, Verna Verti, Lucas and Leslie, Anna has a Hadley, Laura Crims, Shelley Walsh, Courtney Sampler, Justin Champion, Damon Gothner, Nicholas Stott, Larry King, and 150 big ones. Aidan Carroll, Jeff White, Garrett Moon, Bridget Randolph, David Satella, Jim Banks, Matt Satella, and Ben Tepfer, Obi Andrew Enco, Reggie of the Air Miles, Ross Avondale, Brett Satoris, Mary Haynes, and Mike Sadowski, Harry Mirabella, and Kevin Lee, Mark Trothagen, Tad Medlin. Jay Beer, Joe Alphabound, Joe Quick, Russell McCaffey, Chris Smith, Gavin Bell, Marcus Tandler, Zach Johnston, Amy Landino, Bush Matar, Isaac Radunsky, Joe Bondarowski, Chris Green, and Andrew Dottavio, Alex Moss, Christina Nair, Mike Sazova was Miss Marsh. Christina Sentney, Joel Com, Camilla Garnia and Mitch Joe, Scott Brinker, Janet Murray, J.D. Prater and Hannah Butcher, Michael Bonfield, Crimson O'Fonsay, Paul Rook, Marcus Miller, Joe Martinez and Josh Steinley, Paul Lovo, Fabricio Ballerini, Johnny Ross, Tickle Ivories, Andrea Val, Amy Bishop, Leah Bucking Warner, Lexi Mills, Christian Hans, Chad Pullett, Teresa Heath Waring and Jeff Sauer, Kevin Indig, Puppet Iron Searchman, Stephen Spencer and Kirk Williams, Michael Fleischner and Sion Mahon, Marcus Sheridan and Stuart Rogers, Pam Angst, Rock and Rolls It Away. Bas Van Den Belt, Brad Geddes, Emery Carno, Iva Zelka, Evan Carmichael, Patrick Conlon, Julia Brambo, and Rebecca Radice, Mark Wright, You Are Fired, Ian Anderson Gray, Sarah Jean Grattan, Joe Griffin, Ashley Ward, Alexander Rinn, Ariane Donahue, Jason Barnard, Stephen Levy, Sam Monica Jin, Nick Wilsden, Joe Turnbow, Kevin Gibbons, Ian Cleary, Tom Trainer, Laurie Wang, and James Elias, Michael King, hashtag Zurastat, Jeremy Einstein, Dave Verma Scott, Kath Payne, Cosmin McGrescu, Erla Stern, Lydia Citroen, Andrew and Pete, loves Trick or Treat. Dan Norton, Edwin Raymond, Jimmy Daly, Ned Poulter, Dixon Jones, Alex Tachlova, Pete Matthew, Aaron Levy, John O'Oderson, Fast Talking Snack Man, Alyssa Meredith, Jeff C, Jessica Giglio, Dennis Yu, Alexander Roth, Sam Noble, Is it Mark, Ask Me or John Bon Jovi? Colin Gray, take it away. And Mr. Chris Ducker, finish it off.
I don't think I fully unmuted myself there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say that again to everyone watching, because I know for the last few seconds I will have been speaking without any audio, so apologies about that. So I'll just say the greetings that I attempted to say again, and that is hello and a very warm welcome to everyone here in the second part of our Digital Marketing in 2019 live stream. We've got a 5-part series going on here, and we've got 120 of the world's leading digital marketers, all joining us live over those 5 different segments. And everyone is answering the same question. And that question is, what is your number 1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019? I am your host and event organizer, David Bain, head of product, digital marketing for Avado, and founder and host of Digital Marketing Radio. So thank you so much for everyone joining us live, watching us live. It's great that you could join us. If you could possibly share this video with your friends, with your colleagues, that would be much appreciated. We're going to be going for the next hour and a half or so here. We've got about 24 world-class digital marketers all going to be joining us today. So it really will be worthwhile sharing it, getting as many people interacting and watching live if at all possible. Now, today we're very pleased to be joining you live from the BuzzSumo Facebook page. If you do not know, you should absolutely know, BuzzSumo is a content and influencer discovery platform. So let us have a little look at that. Today, in terms of BuzzSumo, just to give you an overview of that, BuzzSumo really helps you analyze what content you should be writing about. So you can discover influencers you should be writing with. You can discover different types of content. Let's see, click on the influencer tab here, click search, and you can find influencers specific to do with whatever topic you're searching for there. And you can also monitor keyword phrases there. It's actually got a 7-day free trial as well, no credit card required for that. So head over to buzzsumo.com to give that a go, and if you haven't given it a go before, I'm sure a lot of you will have done. But if you're watching this live, fantastic. If you're not watching us live, you can sign up to watch the next segment in the series over at digitalmarketingin2019.com. Make sure you do that. We've got 3 more segments to go after this particular one. There's a couple of other reasons that you need to sign up at digitalmarketingin2019.com. First of all, we've got the audio podcast that will be launched in January or February. So that will appear on Digital Marketing Radio. So just search your favorite podcatcher. It could be iTunes, could be Apple, it could be Android, for Digital Marketing Radio. And when you subscribe to Digital Marketing Radio, then you will receive audio versions of all of these tips here. So you certainly want to do that. And reason 2 why you want to be subscribed at digitalmarketing2019.com is we're going to be publishing a book. We are going to be publishing a book in late February of next year, 2019, and that will include all the wonderful tips that the 120 digital marketers are sharing as part of this series. So make sure that you are alerted when that particular book is launched at digitalmarketing2019.com. But now, it is time to introduce you to one of today's co-hosts. He is a serial entrepreneur. I almost said a serious entrepreneur. He's not very serious. He's a man who's built several successful design marketing software and digital businesses since he quit his only real job back in 2005. He's a global keynote speaker. He's the founder of podcast websites. And he isn't too sure whether or not he should keep his beard or not. So maybe you can advise him in the comments. Welcome, my good friend, Mark Asquith.
You're the only one that believes I should shave my beard off. I look like I'm 12 when that's gone. But thank you, man. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I can carry on the compliments, but we'd be here all evening, wouldn't we? So I'll pass over to you, sir, and you can do your wonderful job of introducing all the incredible guests we've got on today.
Here we go, team. And first up, actually, we've got my great friend, Mr. Stuart Rogers. Now, Stuart is an analyst at large at VentureBeat, covering AI, AR, and blockchain. And he's a personal speaker and an MC. He gets all over the world. And he's also a startup founder and, of course, an author. A digital nomad, living life a little unconventionally. Stuart, how are you doing, man? And what is your number 1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Well, it's awesome, awesome, awesome to be here. Thanks so much, man. It's good to see you. Definitely keep the beard. Definitely keep the beard. So, number one actionable tip. Listen, artificial intelligence has taken over marketing technology throughout 2017, throughout 2018. And, that's fine. It's doing all sorts of cool stuff for us. It's helping us to predict things with predictive analytics. It's helping us to automate all of our communications. It's helping to do all of these amazing things, but there's something that is absolutely actionable that everybody needs to remember to do, because sometimes we just let the technology take over, and that's a really bad idea. Listen, sales and marketing is still an emotional business. If you do not elicit an emotional response from the consumer, from the user, from the person that wants to give you their money, you are not going to get that money. If you can't make them feel something, they're not going to give you any of their hard-earned cash. Remember that regardless of artificial intelligence, marketing technology, and anything that is out there that is a tool that can help you to sell or market your products or services, that you've got to create emotion. I was on stage at Slush here in Helsinki today, and we were talking about companies that do a really good job. And one of the companies that came up was Brewdog. And, there's millions of breweries around the world. And let's be honest, they all produce amazing products. It's beer. You can't go wrong. It's beer, for God's sake. But Brewdog have stood out from the rest because every single press release has 45 swear words in it. They have brands called like Punk IPA. They have stood out from the crowd, and they've created something that elicits an emotional response. And that's why they have become so incredibly popular. Do that. Let the technology work for you, but make sure that you're still creating emotion in your customers. Otherwise, you're screwed. Simple as that.
Thank you, buddy. I love that. That's a wonderful tip. Create and elicit emotion, guys. You can find Stuart over at venturebeat.com. Thank you very much, my man. And we are moving on to Mr. Jono Alderson. Now, Jono is a digital strategist, a marketing technologist, and a full-stack developer. He also manages special ops at Yoast, handling all of the weird side projects, the SEO research, and product road mapping, which doesn't fit into the normal day-to-day of the company. So, Jono, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019, sir?
That's exciting. Thanks for having me. My number one tip is just make everything perfect. That's how you win, isn't it? So we did a webinar at Yoast HQ recently about what successful SEO looks like in 2019. So I'm going to rehash some of that. But essentially, the secret to success is to have a fast, easily usable, technically flawless website with excellent content that truly helps your users. And that's not new, and it's not particularly 2019, but that remains the way you win. And the number one tip is just to continue to chase that and not to be scared to chase perfection. A lot of brands work on the premise of what's the least we can get away with? How do we do enough to beat this competitor and leapfrog them today? Actually, the people who really win are the people who say, what's the stretch goal look like? What does having the best content on the internet or the most technically perfect website or the fastest website look like? And picking at least one of those areas and really going for it is how you win, certainly the basics. I think, though, for 2019, there's a new flavor to this, and it's something we've all overlooked for a long time in digital, and 2019 is the year of the brand. We've all been caught up on it being the year of mobile or the year of voice or the year of AI or blockchain, and these have distracted us from the more important thing, that you're never going to rank well or get loads of conversions or shares or whatever your metric is if your product or service sucks. And really, that's also about getting the basics right, but going beyond that and aiming for perfection, whether it's product market fit or customer service or differentiated features. Having those kinds of things are what gets you more links, more shares, more visits, more sales, whatever the metric. So 2019, sort your brand out. Take a step away from the website and look at every touch point in a consumer's lifespan. From the emails you send to the call center scripts to the product packaging to the training your quality control teams get, every single aspect of the business. Teach them about digital and teach them that the work they do and the way that they interact with consumers and what they write and their choices of materials or price positioning, all of those things impact digital. Whether it's the speed of your website or how well you rank or how well your channels integrate, they need to understand that it's all connected. So 2019, put digital down and talk to everyone else about what they do and how that impacts you.
I love it. Brand is back. Thank you, Jono. Much appreciated. You can find Jono at Yoast. Now, next up, we've got Joe Apfelbaum. And Joe is the CEO of Ajax Union, a B2B digital marketing agency based in Brooklyn, New York. Joe's also a business strategist, a marketing expert, and a certified Google trainer. Joe, welcome. What is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
2019 is all about the personal brand. It used to be that people were hiding behind their company, and people are spending about 8 hours or so on social media looking through stuff. And 96% of the stuff that people are looking through on social media is information that people are putting out. Information that people are putting out that means if you're not taking the personal brands of your employees, of the people in your organization seriously, you're missing out on some massive potential attention that's out there. Because most of the attention that's on social media is about other people putting stuff out. So you got to train your people on how to be better, talking about your brand, putting stuff out there, creating asset libraries so human beings can be sharing things with their circles and with their influence. You see, LinkedIn has 500 million plus people on it, and 99% of those people are not posting anything. They're not sharing anything. Most of your employees are not sharing anything, yet 40% of people are logging in every single day. And the reason people are not sharing anything is because they don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy for their own personal brand. I want to ask you, do you have a content calendar for your own personal brand? You as a marketer might have that. But if I ask most CEOs, most entrepreneurs, most sales professionals, and most marketing professionals, they might have one for their brand, but they don't have one for their personal brand. So 2019, get serious. Create a content calendar. Create an asset library. Get serious about your social media efforts for yourself and for the people around you. And that's how you're going to take your business and your life to the next level.
I love that, man. And one quick follow-up question, which I think is really important. Where would you say people can get started? What should they be sharing? What is that line between personal brand and what is too much for a company? How do people start to define that?
The step number one is to really understand what your goals are as an individual and for your company. Once you understand your goals and you understand your target market, most people don't think of their target market, but you have a target market, the most ideal customer. Once you understand your target market, then you need to create your messaging that resonates both with the people that you want to do business with and with the people that you like and you enjoy spending time with. Most people don't think about creating messaging for their target market. They're just creating messaging for the world, and they don't think about the different stages in the funnel for their circle. So people are not thinking about top of the funnel education-based marketing versus middle of the funnel trust-based marketing versus bottom of the funnel people that already have been nurtured and are ready to buy. So you really want to be thinking about your funnel. You want to think about your strategy, which includes your goals, your target, and your message. And we do a webinar. If you check out my LinkedIn profile, I have a free webinar that I do where I literally go through this and specifically tell you what you need to do in order for you to be able to have a better personal brand and have the right mix between business and personal, because people want to get to know you. People don't care about what you do. Sure, you're going to be sharing that, but people want to know, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What are your hobbies? What are the things that make you unique? And that's why people follow you, because humans don't want to do business with brands. They want to do business with other humans.
I love that. Thank you so much, Joe. People matter, guys. Remember, thank you so much. You can find Joe at ajaxunion.com. Next up, we've got the wonderful Jill Quick, and Jill is the co-founder of the Colouring In Department, which might be the best name for a business on planet Earth. A chatty, candid, gin-loving northerner who has got a love for digital marketing and a bit of a soft spot for the measurement side. Jill, hello. What is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Okay, so my digital actionable tip is probably more in line with your own personal development. I would like to pose a question that we can be amazing at our job and have deep subject matter expertise, but without realizing it or without having any intention, you can really mess something up at the other end of the business. So we've all heard of the T-shaped marketeer. I'd like to think we need to bend a little bit to be embracing an opposite and a complementary skill set. So I've seen this year with a lot of people that we've trained, fantastic web designers, and they don't know SEO, so they cause loads of problems, and it's not perfect, which is what Jono wants in his world. It just doesn't happen. And then they don't understand user experience, so nobody can navigate what they're doing. As a person that loves analytics, I've had to get my head out my ass for the process side of things and the data vomit, and understand user experience. Again, data is a proxy for people. I've had to learn visual thinking and storytelling so I can get that message across. So I think for me next year, it's how do we get involved. So Jono mentioned this with the teaching side of it. Attend other meetings, like talk to your other business users, your other agencies, your supporters, because you don't have to be a jack of all trades. You still need to be ace at what you do, but we need to have a bit more of an understanding. There's no single job now, is there? Like in terms of marketing, we all bleed into different areas, which means we need to adapt our skill set. And I fear that we've become almost too narrow-minded with our favorite skill set. So it's a bit scary to do it. I've struggled with the visual storytelling side of things. It does not come natural to me, but I think it's made me a better marketeer because I'm starting to go out of my comfort zone. So yeah, and there's no excuse now with podcasts and YouTube videos, and you can learn a little bit more outside of your bubble.
I love that. Thank you so very much, Jill. Now you can find Jill at thecoloringindepartment.com. Next up, we've got Russell McCarthy. Now, Russell is not a marketing data guy. He is the marketing data guy, specializing in attribution. He runs a marketing platform company that shows brands the true value of their activity in an attributed multi-channel environment. Russell, welcome. And what is your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Hi, Mark. The #1 thing for me is for brands to own their data. So there's so many companies out there that rely on third parties. They rely on other technologies to capture, aggregate their data sets across all of the different channels that they work in, across all of the different interactions that they have with the customer. And we've seen over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, these technologies reducing the capabilities of the front end. They give them new graphs and they give them new data sets. However, the brands themselves don't own that data set. So our advice to marketers, even if you're agency side or consultancy side, but especially for brands, is go and get that data, store it yourselves. It's not expensive anymore, or have a third party store it on behalf of you, but you own it. And I'm not just talking about your web analytics data. I'm talking about going into the APIs of the technologies that you already utilize. Go into AdWords, go into DoubleClick, go into the affiliate networks, and make sure you truly understand the granularity of the data that you're utilizing, because this means that your understanding of the decision making that you are having to do every single day, you're making sure that that has got a validity behind it as well. And then this enables you to have the correct KPIs and actually design the right way of working with your partners and with your internal teams.
I love that. Now, a follow-up question for that then, Russell. What is the single biggest thing that people measure that they shouldn't really be caring about? What are the things that you tend to fix for people?
Most things. So, for example, the amount of visits to a website doesn't matter. Bounce rate doesn't matter. Post impression value, viewability and display. All of those are effectively metrics that are utilized to sell something or to incentivize someone to do something that's incorrect. If I just take visits as an example, visits to calculate conversion rate is not actually a metric that should matter to people, because one person coming back 5 times is a very different understanding of 5 different visits. And so just it's the ability for these brands to, if they care about capturing it themselves, or at least understand how they're capturing it at the lowest granularity, it means when it is aggregated, which is how it needs to be viewed from a decision-making perspective, it means that they understand a bit behind the scenes. They understand the wizard from the Wizard of Oz. They get to see behind that curtain. And it means that when you don't have those meetings where bullshit metrics are just thrown out as a valid use of time and effort, whereas you can then focus on the things that truly actually matter.
I love that. Russell, thank you so very much. Now, you can find Russell, guys, over at cubed.ai. AI. Next up, we've got Mr. Chris Smith. Now, Chris is the author of The Conversion Code and co-founder of Curator. Chris, welcome. And what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. Just want to make sure the mic's working. It looks like you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you
A little quiet on the volume. If you can get a touch closer, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. Is that better for you guys?
Beautiful.
Check,
Thank
check.
you.
Awesome. No problem. So my number one piece of advice, and this is going to hurt a little bit, but my number one piece of advice is that most of the people watching need to do what they did last year better. I mean, we are so quick to look for the next big thing. What can I do in 2019 to avoid doing the real work that I forgot to do in 2018? So I'm a big fan of going back to what you were supposed to do and doing it better. One of my favorite sayings is quit tripping over nickels to pick up pennies. And that's what a lot of times we do in marketing. We can't wait to try something new because it means it might work, as opposed to going back and making the things we've been doing better. And that really is what leads me into my actionable advice. We do this every single year, and it helps us generate thousands of leads the following year. We go into our Google Analytics, and we sort our top performing content by page views per visitor or time on site. And what we've learned is that the content on our site each year that performs the best when it's not a lead magnet is incredibly useful the next year as a lead magnet. So we take our top 5 articles from the prior year and we put those behind a landing page. And the fact that they were popular, the fact that the analytics back up that people really enjoyed reading them, they stuck around, they stayed for a while, it almost guarantees that it works as a lead magnet. So that's the first thing we do is we go in, we identify the top performing content, and we don't let it die a slow death. We recycle it as a landing page opt-in lead magnet. The other thing we do is we go into our Facebook page insights, and we do basically the same thing. What were your most popular 5 or 6 posts from last year? Because what you can do is you can then use those to target new people this year. So as an example, if I have a post that went viral last year and got tons of engagement, really great click-through rate, well, maybe a new person that engages with my Facebook page this year should see that as a retargeting ad. Maybe I should use my Facebook tracking pixel on my website to make sure my best content on Facebook gets seen again by a new visitor. So I think the theme of my quick tip here would be go make what's old new again. Make sure there's not a little bit more juice in that orange.
I love that. They're 2 wonderful tips there, Chris. Thank you so very much. Now, you can find Chris over at curator.com. Next up, we've got a good friend of mine, Mr. Gavin Bell, the world-traveling Gavin Bell himself. Now, Gavin is an award-winning speaker, a vlogger, and a Facebook ads expert. Now, Gav, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Okay, question, Mark. Thanks for having me, guys. My number one piece of advice is something that's maybe not very complex, maybe not very growth hacky, if that's a term, but that's because I'm a big believer in these things, tactics and growth hacks. I mean, they're okay, but what I like to focus on is consumer behavior, like human beings. What's some of the things we've done as human beings for hundreds of years and will continue to do. And although I focus on Facebook ads with the agency and things, it's all how do we use consumer behavior and Facebook ads together. So I think there's actually, if we go back to the basics, this is something that we've probably been hearing for years and years, is there's still people out there that aren't creating content for their customers, content that their customers are searching for, questions that they're asking, problems that they're needing solved. People aren't creating that, and they're not creating it in video format either. I mean, I speak on quite a few stages a year, and I ask the question every single time, who's thought about creating video content? Most of the hands in the room go up. Who's actually doing it? And 3 or 4 hands will stay up. Most people aren't creating video. So my number one tip is to get people to start creating video content, even if they don't know what to create right now. Just start and get in the habit of creating it, and that will take you on a journey of finding things that work and finding things that don't work. And further to that is to then start to use Facebook ads to promote that video content out to people that are going to be interested in that piece of content. Now, the reason this is really good is because as you start to build an audience of people that have consumed that piece of content, those videos, if someone has watched 95%, for example, of a Facebook advertising video, I know that they're probably going to be a potential customer for me, or someone that is interested in learning how to become better at Facebook ads. And what we can do on Facebook is we can create retargeting ads to the people that have consumed our video content with follow-up ads. Going back to the first point I made about consumer behavior being human beings, we only buy or work with people that we know, like, and trust. So we provide value first in video content and retarget those people with follow-up ads. When by the time they see that follow-up ad, maybe we're trying to sell something, get them to opt into a lead magnet, they know who we are, and hopefully they already like and trust us, so they're much more likely to take that action. So create video content and use Facebook ads to promote that and drive people further into your funnel.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Gavin. Always a pleasure. Good to see you. And you can find Gavin over at mrgavinbell.com. Now, next up, we've got Marcus Tandler. Marcus is a keynote speaker and a TEDx talker, just like my good self. Now, I've got to tell you that David wrote that. I'm not a good self. Thanks, Dave. He was a European Search Personality of the Year in 2017, and he's also the Managing Director at Right. So, Marcus, welcome. And let me ask you, what is your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be part of this. So my tip, or more like a New Year's resolution for next year, is doing a panda diet. In the age of panda, index bloat is a definite threat. Millions of indexed HTML documents are not an asset, but a liability. Indexing everything is inefficient by definition. So most of the website is usually dead weight, and it's pulling down your best pages. So for every URL, you should ask yourself 3 questions. So do I need this page for my users? Does this page need to be indexed? And if ultimately, does this page need to rank for something? And this way you will get rid of useless category and tag pages, faceted search, especially without real search demand, out of stock pages and other expired offers, few result pages. So you should definitely set an item threshold, that's for sure. And also, of course, other thin content on my side. And one more pro tip on the quickest way to remove lots of pages from the index, a negative sitemap. So I will set up all pages which are no longer needed to 410 gone, and then build a negative sitemap with all those 410 pages, submit the sitemap, and done. In my experience, it's really the fastest way to remove lots of pages from the index. I actually got that tip from Joost de Walk at the last SEO Oktoberfest G50 Summit. So thanks for that, and I hope you find this valuable.
Super stuff. Marcus, thank you so very much. Now, you can find Marcus at ryte.com, which is RYTE.com. Thank you very much. And next up, we have Moshe Zodfer. Now, Moshe is the owner of Super Spicy Media. Where are all these amazing names coming from? This is fantastic. Moshe is a Facebook ads expert that helps 7+ figure companies generate leads and increase profits with Facebook ads. So, Moshe, what is your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019, please?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm going to talk about Facebook ads because launching a conversion, when no one was advertising on Facebook, and that was a couple of years ago, it was just starting out. It was pretty easy to get started. It was pretty easy to launch a profitable campaign, but that's not the case anymore. Launching a conversion campaign on Facebook isn't enough anymore to ensure your success, to ensure profitability, because everyone is advertising. Everyone is competing against each other. You probably have a couple of friends that are advertising. You're probably advertising yourself, and you know that. So if you truly want to increase your profits, if you want to launch successful campaign, not just one, but over and over again, that will perform well on the long run, not just for the first week, don't think of your campaigns as a standalone entities, as many people do, but connect them in a whole and connect them in a funnel. Developing your Facebook advertising funnel isn't really complicated. A lot of people think that it is, but I have a very special and easy way to figure out what your Facebook advertising funnel is and how to implement it, because you have to think of it as a typical customer journey where each step of that journey represents its own campaign. So for example, if I'm selling an ebook and before someone purchases my ebook, he signs up for my email course, and before that he visits my landing page, that's the funnel that I'm going to implement on Facebook ads as well. So as you sit down at the end of the year and you start planning your advertising for 2019, start by documenting your customer journey and organize your Facebook advertising around that.
Moshe, that is fantastic advice. And let me ask you a follow-up question on that. What is the number one mistake that you tend to go in and look for first? When you start working with a brand new company, what's the quickest win that you tend to find that most people can get?
So the number one mistake is they launch a purchase campaign and that's it. So they think that because I'm investing money in Facebook ads, all I need to do is launch a campaign where people can purchase my product, but that's not it. If you do only that, you're not going to be able to scale the top of your funnel and you're not going to be able to grow your business. You're just going to limit yourself. So the number one thing, the quickest that you can do is advertise some sort of a lead magnet. If you're advertising, if you own a software, you can advertise a free trial to that software. So something of value, something that people can get for free. They can see that you know what you're talking about. They can see that you're the authority in that space, or they can see that your software is really good. And that's when you start to pitch them a paying product.
I love that, Moshe. Thank you so much. And you can find Moshe over at superspicymedia.com, which is now the best name that I've seen all day. Super stuff, guys. Next up, we've got Olga Adrianko. And Olga is the head of global marketing at SEMrush, helping brands to establish a strong online presence. Olga, welcome. And what is your number one digital marketing tip for 2019, please?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderfully.
Okay, great. So I have two small ones. And then the first one is that what I really realized this year is that all awesome things are basic stuff done exceptionally well. So, and then that's what my number one tip is, that don't dream about awesome campaigns, but then just ensure that you have everything set up properly in social media, in the blog, on the website. And you should just do that exceptionally well. And once you go into the small details and elements and do them to excellent level, then actually you outrun 90% of everyone else. And then the second tip is about sharing data. What we discovered recently with Forrester is that most of the teams, they're not really ready for the cross-channel marketing efforts because they're not sharing data within the company. So first thing that you need to do is that you need to go to your advertising, PR, SEO team and just get the data and share the data yourself. And then what we discovered is that 26% of SEO teams get the data from advertising and PR, which is an insanely low number. And just make sure that other teams have the same information as you are, and then make sure that you align the efforts within your company or your marketing team.
That's superb. Now let's just kind of follow up, Olga, with that first point. Do the basics really, really well. Now, when you're working at SEMrush, again, kind of a follow-up question in a similar vein to what we've been talking about earlier. What do people really tend to get wrong? What is the biggest quick win that you can give people when it comes to doing the basics exceptionally well?
Just think about them. Kind of what we make. The mistake that we do ourselves is that we think of how to promote SEMrush, or how to actually make us more visible, but then we sometimes don't even think of where the customer, where the potential prospect would look to. So that's the mistake. We were not thinking about, we're just promoting the tool, but what we need to think of is the workflow and then the solutions to the problems that the customer has.
I love that. Solve the problems. Olga, thank you so very much. You guys can find Olga over at semrush.com. Now, Up next is a great friend of mine, Mr. Colin Gray, who looks much tougher now that he's shaved his head. I'm now afraid of you. Colin helps anyone to start a podcast and to grow an audience, both through Podcast Host Academy and his podcast maker app, Ali2. Now, I feel like I've been fed a question here because my first question to you, Colin, is tell me the truth. What do you think of my beard?
Well, I mean, you've had it so long that I don't even notice it anymore, really. I mean, you might as well. If you shaved it off, I would notice it. I would miss it. But right now, it's just there.
You see, Dave? You see, we're winning. Myself and the beard won. Thanks, Cole. Now, listen, man. We've spoken about this in the past, but what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Mine for 2019 is around smart repurposing. So we do podcasting, obviously that's our big topic, but really we do everything else as well around it. And podcasting works best when it's supported by blogging and video as well. So quickly run through our process over 2 minutes. We'll come up with a topic based on listener feedback, based on questions through our website, based on something from a real person. We rarely come up with a topic by ourselves, but we take this topic and we start writing a blog post on it. I tend to start with a blog post, so write that out. We've got the post. You've got a plan around that as well. Then I'll pick up the mic and I'll pick up the video camera as well. And we'll tend to record something possibly even live based on this. So I'll do a live session where often maybe I'll do like a wee introduction with a greetings, meet and greet, hello, welcome, and all that kind of stuff. Then what do you want to know about this topic? Like we're going to talk about the best podcast microphones. What do you want to know about it? What are your questions? What podcast microphones do you use? Then we'll jump into the podcast itself. I'll spend 15 minutes on this live broadcast just doing content, no meet and greet and all that kind of stuff, just the live content powered by what the audience have told us. Then we'll do some Q&A at the end, and that makes a really good live broadcast, but it also makes a really good podcast because I just cut out that content bit in the middle, which has been powered by the questions, the ideas from that live audience. I repurpose that to the podcast. I take bits of that video, I put that on YouTube, you know, the highlights, the real kind of takeaways, the concrete tips, put them in YouTube. And through those two things, that one idea that turned into a blog post and a live broadcast, we've got a podcast, we've got a range of YouTube videos, we've got a blog post, and all of that is powering our content. So that's smart repurposing for me. That doesn't take too long to create all of those different areas, and they all tie together to create your content web.
I love that. Now, Colin is really a master at that one, and you can find everything that you need from Mr. Colin Gray over at thepodcasthost.com. Thank you so very much, sir. Always a pleasure.
No worries.
Next up, we have got Mr. Joel Bondarowski. Now, Joel is the founder of PPC Designs, a boutique advertising agency which specializes in large-scale PPC campaigns tailor-made for the unique needs of each client. Now, Joel, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019, please?
That would actually be to stay up to date for 2019. Like what I found is that in the past year or so, Google has made tremendous changes and updates to their product, more than I've seen in the previous 10 years. In addition to that, there's all kinds of things changing, a lot of it due to new privacy concerns and so on. So Google's working very hard in particular to make sure that their product delivers the best results for you. They're regularly coming out with new features and new ways to measure your campaigns that help you advertise better, so that way you do a better job and, you know, serve them better as well by being able to spend more, because that only happens if you can perform better. They recently set up an updates page, which is amazing. Like if you check it out, it's hard to believe how many new features have been changed recently. People tend to get stuck with what they're used to be doing because it's always worked, right? I mean, it's kind of a pitfall that almost everybody has. You need to get off of it. You need to see what's going on. Recently, they've come out with things which are incredible, such as the target impression share feature is amazing. If you want to make sure your ads are being shown all the time, they came up with new metrics so you could see how your ads are performing based on whether they're above the organic search results or below. So you're just not in the dark over like whether a good CTR is good or not. So, I mean, it's really what I have to say is you need to stay on top of it, because that could make or break you. Otherwise, you might be left behind.
I love that, Joel. Thank you so very much. A pleasure. Really, really great advice. You can find Joel over on Twitter at LiquidJoel. And who's next, Dave?
Thank you.
I tell you who next is. It's Mr. Asquith. We have powered through the first half of this wonderful session. Every speaker has just been incredible. Everyone's turned up exactly on time as well and shared some incredible content there. And I'm sure everyone will agree watching there. We've had some wonderful comments online as well. Great sharing of the different tips going on from BuzzSumo. So thank you, BuzzSumo, for doing all those shares. It's great to actually read out a summary of exactly the tips that have been shared. Catalina Barrera actually said, what about creativity? Do we replace creativity with conversational marketing? We had a few tips, Mark. I know Colin was saying to look into the various questions that people are asking to power things like blog posts. What's your own personal take on that, Mark? Do you think that there's still room for people internally within a brand to be creative themselves, or do you think they should be 100% driven by the types of questions that people have in relation to their brand?
That's actually a really good question, and I think there are two sides to that coin, as you alluded to. There's the creativity for being creative's sake, but then there's also being creative insofar as solving people's problems. I mean, we're all sat on support. We all get emails, queries, telephone calls asking us about issues that people are having with our software, our product, our services, or whatever. I think it's how you answer those questions in a creative manner that counts, and then, like Colin alluded to, repurposing those into creative outlets for content. So it's not just a quick blog post out there. It's actually, what can we do to turn this into a narrative? What can we do to actually solve other people's problems and then give a relevant lead magnet, and then do something that's really within our brand, you know, to use our own brand terminology and have a little bit of fun with the language. So I think there's a fine line there, but ultimately, you know, marketing has got to create the conditions for a sale to happen. And to do that, we've got to solve the problems. So you've got to balance that, I think.
Now, that's a challenge with having these wonderful conversations and all these wonderful people on. It's difficult not to delve into different topics and keep on asking follow-up questions. But one quick question that I also want to ask Mark is, Mark, do you have another number one actionable digital marketing tip that you would also like to leave viewers with before you head off yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me, Dave. This has been fantastic. Congratulations on what you do every single year. My number one tip is get your onboarding right. If you can market and you can sell and you can create the most wonderful experience to the point that someone buys, and after that you drop the ball, then your churn is going to go up. Focus a mass amount on your onboarding, the welcome sequences, the personal touches that you can integrate into that first 3 months of using your product or your service. And if you get that right, people will become fans, they will become advocates, and you'll be able to use that advocacy for the greater good of your marketing and use that within your marketing. So if you get that onboarding right, it will directly affect your bottom line. I see so many people getting that wrong because they believe that once they've made the sale that marketing stops, and it really truly doesn't. I actually think that you've got a more difficult job in keeping people because we live in such a competitive market. So get your onboarding right. And the kind of cherry on the cake that I'll add to that is do personal things that people tell you you can't or shouldn't be doing in a scalable business. Do personal one-to-one calls, do check-ins, do audits of their products, their services, their businesses. Go in there and be a person with them. It only takes 5 minutes to change someone's day. Be that person, and that will just completely ensure that your churn rate drops.
Wonderful stuff. And also in relation to the answer you gave to Catalina's question, Mark, she says, great, love the answer there. So a lot of value that you've shared there. Wonderful hosting, as usual, sir. Thank you so much for your section there. Much appreciated. You can find Mark over at podcastwebsites.com. And as a public service announcement, if you're watching this series live, make sure you subscribed to the upcoming show. So this is the second out of 5 live streams we're going. digitalmarketingin2019.com is where you need to be subscribed to receive these alerts to watch the next 3 shows in the series. Another 2 reasons why you need to subscribe. Firstly, we've got a podcast series that will be published in the new year. That'll be published in the Digital Marketing Radio podcast, and we'll give you an alert when the podcast episodes are published if you're subscribed there. And also, secondly, Digital Marketing 2019 will be published as a book in late February 2019. So again, digitalmarketingin2019.com. It's where you need to be subscribed to receive those alerts. My next co-host is the owner of Pam and Marketing and Stealth Search and Analytics, both of which specialize in SEO, PPC, and analytics. Welcome, Pam Ungst.
Thank you so much for having me. Great job on this so far.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so far. No, I'm sure it will.
I didn't mean that it's going to go downhill from here or anything like that.
It will go up. No, uphill's worse. Pam is going to be co-hosting the next section. I very much look forward to that. Pam's a wonderful and experienced digital marketer and host. So, Pam, straight over to you.
Thank you. All right, so let's get right to it. Our first guest at this moment is Dr. Marie Haynes. Marie is completely obsessed with trying to understand how Google's algorithms work. I can certainly identify with that affliction. So Marie, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Hey, thanks, Pam. And I really agree. This is a really great idea to do this. So thanks for having me. Our number one tip that we really have taken advantage of in the last year or so is reading the information on Google's quality raters guidelines. I know they've been getting a lot of attention lately. So these guidelines, they're available for everybody to read. You can just do a Google search for quality raters guidelines. And they're not exactly one-to-one what Google is doing with their algorithms, but Google's VP of Search, Ben Gomes, he recently said that they're actually showing where Google wants to go with their algorithms. So everybody can read them. They're about 160 pages, takes a few hours to get through them. But a few tips that I can give in the time that we have are, number one, pay close attention to what the guidelines talk about for EAT, which is expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. And there's a lot of misinformation and confusion about EAT online. It's way more than just saying, well, I'm a doctor, so my medical posts are going to be good. It's all about, the guidelines tell us, how does Google figure this out? How do they figure out whether you're an authority? If you have authoritative mentions, that sort of points towards links and other things. But the thing that I think is really, really important is the T in trust, which is the T in EAT, which stands for trust. And a lot of the algorithm updates that we've seen this year, August 1st, September 27th, in my opinion, had tons of things to do with how Google determines trust. And so in the guidelines, there's all these little hints. They talk about looking at your reputation of your business. If people all over the place are complaining about your business, there's a good chance that Google doesn't want to rank you well. They have things about whether you have a terms and conditions page, whether people can easily find how to get a refund from you. And what we're seeing is a lot of sites that were hit with these algorithm updates on August 1st or September 27th had issues that are directly outlined in the quality raters guidelines as trust issues. And then finally, there's a lot of information in the quality raters guidelines too about ads and ad quality. And they talk about things like if you're trying to hide your ads to look like the rest of your content and sort of deceive people into clicking, that can be a sign of low quality too. So, I could probably go on for hours about the things that we've learned from these guidelines, but definitely that would be my number one tip for the year.
Excellent tip. So some light reading recommended by Dr. Marie, who can be found over at mariehaynes.com. Thank you very much, Marie. Next up, we have Lobster Man, Mike Sadowski. At least I think that's what you are.
Yeah, that's me.
Excellent. I love it. Mike is founder at Brand24, a media monitoring tool with thousands of clients from 110 countries. He's also mentor at Startup Weekend. So, Mike, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
So that would be to leverage social proof to enrich your website. We can see more and more companies using probably mostly positive mentions about their brands collected from all over the web, embedding them on their website to boost the conversion, to build credibility, to show clients or their potential clients that they are a part of the larger community. It's pretty much similar to the, let's say, good old testimonials. However, it's much more powerful because it's clickable, it's authentic. You can talk to existing clients. You can check the obviously how actual or how up to date the data is. So we see more and more companies embedding those within their websites, and it actually is it is a really good way to boost the conversion, from new users to sign up. So that would be my number one tip I could really strongly recommend to anyone.
Excellent, excellent. So a running theme so far, we've got trust and now credibility. One very important follow-up question, is there any significance to the choice of the lobster costume today?
Not at all. I mean, I just wanted to stand out in some way. So, and I happen to have a lobster costume in my trunk in my car every time I drive. So
perfect. I love it. Excellent.
I had a
Thank you.
too, but the red stands out better.
Yes, I agree. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find Mike. You can find Mike over at brand24.com. All right. Next up, we have Andrea DeTavio. Andrea is a digital marketing expert and international speaker. Andrea, thanks for joining us. What is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Hi. Thanks for having me. I have no lobster costume. Sorry.
It's all downhill from
but
here.
I have a surfboard that's behind me.
Okay, all right.
I can try to surf that. So my number one actionable tip would be to start using Instagram heavily to find customers. I think the Instagram is still very underestimated in terms of driving traffic and driving sales. So since now everything has become so very visual, people love videos and love photos. And basically, we're all staring at our mobile phones and looking at media from others and thinking about like ideal lives everybody seems to be living. I think there is a lot to do on Instagram as a brand. So, for example, you can find competitors by you can find customers by just looking at competitors. You can engage with these people. You can engage with people who tag themselves at very specific locations. So basically you can also, and I know this is going to be controversial, you can also automate this process with bots, for example. So we are bombarded with ads about using chatbots and messenger bots, but I don't see why we cannot use Instagram bots if you want to automate all this process. So my advice would be to use Instagram, to use Instagram stories, for example, to use shoppable posts. So if you have products or you have an online shop, for example, you can sync your catalog with Instagram and just start posting your products right in front of your potential customers. And by creating this kind of engagement, without even spending $1, you can actually get a lot of traffic to your website, and just you can find another channel.
Interesting and perhaps controversial advice from Andrea, but things evolve. They do. Remember when scheduling social posts was like a big no-no, and now it's kind of accepted. So who knows? We'll see where it goes.
Maybe this is a bit worse, but there are a lot of marketers doing it.
Yep. Well, excellent stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. You can find him over at vagabondceo.com.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Katie Howell. Katie breaks the boring in social media. I love that intro. Katie, what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
This is great. I'm loving it. So my big tip is put the wiggle back in your social content. So we've known this year has been fantastic for brands from brand activity from video and live video perspective, but it's actually had a phenomenal effect on everything else that we do in terms of content. And one of the things that if you can't always put out live social or can't always put out video, is to think about putting a little bit of movement into your content. So that could be, a boomerang, it could be putting a little sparkle, GIFs, you name it. We even moved down the road of picture drifts. And there are two rational reasons for doing this. The first is you want to encourage thumb-stopping content, we call it, the content that makes people go woo in their mobile feed and stop, look, and that's very much encouraged by moving content, which really stands out in a noisy social world. And the second is that the algorithms for most of the social networks love it. So particularly in paid, you will find with paid social, moving content is prioritized over and above static content or still images. So a little bit more wiggle would be my answer to 2019.
I love it. I love it. Wiggle and make them stop their thumbs. Excellent, excellent stuff, Katie. Thank you so much. You can find her over at immediatefuture.co.uk. All right, next up we have Isaac Rudansky, a New Yorker. Isaac is CEO and founder of Adventure Media Group, a New York-based digital advertising agency. He's also a best-selling online instructor with over 100,000 students around the world. So Isaac, thank you for joining us. And what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Thanks for having me. This is fantastic. I think the most important thing for people to do is to experiment with their landing pages. That's something which a lot of people aren't doing. It's unbelievable how many clients we get on a regular monthly basis that they're testing their ads, they're testing different calls to action in their Facebook posts. But when it comes to their websites, their landing pages, they're where the main customer experience actually happens, they're doing very little testing. And that's because there's a couple of reasons why that is. It's difficult. It's hard for people to get buy-in from higher ups in a company, because typically what a landing page says and what a landing page looks like is really what the boss or what the person at the top of the chain wants it to say or look like. But if you could use 3 stages, there's diagnosing, there's implementing tests, and then there's analyzing results of conversion rate experiments, you could see enormous improvements. And if you could increase your conversion rate by just a few percentage points, you then have additional money to then go back and put more money into traffic acquisition, which is what most companies are spending most of their time doing, acquiring traffic in the digital marketing world, acquiring traffic to their websites, to their landing pages, but very little work is being done once you actually get to the landing page with running these sorts of experiments. So for example, you could use tools like Usability Hub to run preference tests by showing 50 survey respondents a homepage screenshot, version 1, version 2. You ask them, give them 5 seconds to take a look at it. This is what's called the 5-second preference test. It's a very famous test in usability. And you say, what does this company do? You show 2 images of the screenshot to 50 different people, and you say, and you have a different headline, a different subheadline, and you ask the person, what does this company do, and what value do they provide their customers? And I've done these tests over and over again. And sometimes, like a lot of companies like to have like really, really catchy headlines that don't really mean anything by themselves. And the clarity of the products or services then comes up in the subheadlines. So what I've done is not even to do any new creative writing. I just switch. I switch the subheadline with the headline, and I run a preference test. And 9 times out of 10, we'll have significantly better responses from anonymous users that understand now when you put the subheadline where the headline is, they have a much better understanding of what the company actually does, which is what your landing page and website needs to do really quickly if you want to have a chance of converting these visitors or getting these visitors interested in your products or services. So that's part of the diagnosing stage. Experimenting is now, let's say, I understand that we have an issue with clarity, right? We've done some diagnostics, we've done some preference tests, we know that our landing pages aren't so clear. Well, now I want to go ahead and test these headlines. So you could use a tool like Google Optimize, you could do Visual Website Optimize or Optimizely, and start running some actual A/B tests. 50% of your traffic see headline A, 50% of your traffic see headline B. Just quickly, the last thing is to remember to not spend too much time testing meaningless elements. Like people love to test button colors. They love to test this image versus that image. They love to test font and typography. Those things are really easy to test because it's like sort of aesthetics and they come natural to people, but they don't really do much when it comes to conversion rate. The thing that really makes an impact when it comes to conversion rate, if you want to increase conversion rate, is testing copy. And testing copy is difficult because it's not easy to write good copy. You have to understand your principles of salesmanship, which is very good and very, very important thing to know. So just 2 quick book recommendations is Persuasion by Robert Cialdini and Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins. 2 fantastic books if you want to get better at testing your landing pages, testing your copy, and also writing better, more persuasive copy. So that's my thoughts going into 2019.
Wow, excellent stuff. So some really in-depth landing page optimization advice from Isaac. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. You can find Isaac over at adventureppc.com.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly. All right. Next up, we have Krista Nair. Krista is the CEO of Bootcamp Digital. She's also an international speaker, best-selling author of 4 books, and a digital marketing pioneer. Thanks so much for joining us, Krista. And what is your number 1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I think my goal is to have the least sexy tip, but my tip is, goals, right? But my tip is focus on foundations, right? And I think one of the things that I've seen especially in the last 5 years, is that we're focused sometimes on these shiny new objects, right? And the thing is, when you step back and actually look at what is driving ROI, return on investment for your business, it's usually a handful of things, and it's the stuff you've been doing for a long time. And spending your time and effort in doing those better, that's going to give you the return on the investment that you need. So a great example, I'm working with, a $1 billion company at the moment. And when we look at where their time and effort goes into digital marketing, a lot of it is, chat bots and all this stuff. And then we find, well, nobody's even looked at the search ads in a year, right? Search ads are a proven strategy. They can work on doing them just a little bit better and guarantee they get ROI from that. But instead, I think it's easy sometimes to be distracted by all these other things going on, and we forget the stuff that really matters. And so I think when you look at digital marketing, especially enterprise businesses, but also for small businesses, avoid the distractions. Think about what are these core things that are really going to grow your business and your return on investment. And they're probably the least sexy things. But if you focus on those, that's where the result comes from. And so, links to that, I would say content, media, your website, these are for most businesses kind of the 3 cornerstones of what's going to drive your results. Yet what I see is on Facebook, everyone wants a chat bot when their content has relevancy scores of 1 because no one likes it. If your relevancy score is 1 or 2 or 3, that means you're paying a lot more than you should, and it means nobody likes your stuff, so it has no impact. They just scroll right past it. But it's hard to make good content. It's easier in some ways to launch a chatbot or to try this new stuff. And so I think really with where we're at right now, we have enough proven things that work, but I'm guilty of this. We all are for our own marketing. There's all these fun, sexy things that we kind of want to try and do, and it's a big distraction. So to me, the big thing is focus on the fundamentals and focus on what really matters to drive the impact for your business.
I like that a lot. I think the marketing world can be kind of similar to, the health and nutrition world, where everyone's always looking for like the next quick fix, right? The next diet pill or the next crazy diet fad or workout fad or whatever. And really just got to focus on basic nutrition, the foundational stuff, just moving around whatever way, shape, or form is kind of similar, right? In marketing.
Yeah, well, and sometimes I feel like tools are the diet pill of marketing, right? In the sense of like, okay, what is a diet pill? It's so easy to take a pill, right? But ultimately, it could help you like 3 to 5%, right? If you really want to get in shape and lose weight, it's like hard. You have to exercise. With social media and digital marketing, all these businesses, when you say, well, how can I help you? What are you looking for? Tools. What time of day should I post? Right? All these like little mechanics that are easy to implement, but ultimately not very impactful. But I think it's so much easier to say, oh, I'm using a tool, or well, I posted at 2 p.m., even though it was completely boring. It's easier to post at 2 p.m. than to say, man, I'm posting stuff no one cares about. That's a tricky problem to fix. It's hard to get up and go to the gym every day. And so I feel like the diet pill is a great analogy, because oftentimes I think we still want these easy answers, but inherently we really do know what works. It's about having the discipline and the rigor and being willing to like do the hard work to go through. And I think a lot of the other expert tips, a lot of the stuff, if you look at a theme, it's like this hard work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what it takes.
Yep, and it's not easy to look at yourself objectively too, right? As a brand or a company, I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and looked at my website after 6 months, a year, or whatever amount of time goes by, and I look at it and I'm like, whoa, things have evolved, and this doesn't really represent us anymore. But it's you just kind of assume that everything is all the way it should be because it's your stuff and you're familiar with it, and you forget to look at it, like try to look at it from an outsider's point of view.
Yeah, well, and I think we all have a narrative in our head It's all different for each of us, but we all have a narrative that prevents us from seeing things objectively, right? That's why consultants are well paid, because they can sometimes come in and help you see things that for whatever reason you can't, you know. And I worked with a business recently. Their website was, you know, at least 5 years old, which doesn't sound that old, but in this world it is. And it was like awful. It was hideous, right? And they're talking about all these other things they want to do. And I said, well, your website's really awful. And they were like, yeah, we know. I'm like, man, you know, this is costing you money for sure every single day. I guarantee you this crappy website costs you money every day. This other stuff you're doing, like, it could work okay for you, but there's no guarantee. And it'll work less well because your website is crappy, right? But, you know, in their mind, they know their website sucks. It's just hard to say, okay, yeah, now I'm going to go and get moving on that website. It's, you know, it's not fun. It's not where they wanted to spend their time. And sometimes we have to do that hard work we don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent advice. Thank you so much. So focus on the foundational and the basics instead of the new shiny diet pill of marketing. I love it. You can find Krista over at bootcampdigital.com.
Great stuff. Okay, so we're just waiting a couple of minutes for the next guests coming in. I know that Michael was just trying to get in there, and I was just actually sending him the calendar link, so hopefully he should just be in a second. But it's quite interesting. A lot of guests were talking about content. Krista, you were just talking about the fact that poor content doesn't cut it anymore, and you've got to do something a little bit different. Hopefully this event is quite a bit different as well, and we'll certainly see the impact of that. I know yesterday's show we had over 1,000 people watching us live. We've got quite a few people going to be watching us live for the whole show here as well. But it just frustrates me when we see so many bloggers publishing 500-word articles that are just average content that you just know has no chance of ranking at the top of search engines anymore. People are going to get bored. There are thousands of articles on the same topic that have been published out there, and you've got to do something a little bit different nowadays. Krista, in terms of your plans for 2019 and content, do you have any major pieces planned in? Do you plan that far in advance?
Sometimes. I mean, I think, though, to build off what you're saying, in the early days of social media and digital, we were obsessing over calendars. And I think that's what leads to so much terrible content, is everyone feels like, oh, well, I have a newsletter template. I need to fill these 10 blocks. Oh, I have a Facebook post due today. I'm just going to create something. And now quality is much more important. And I don't think we've adapted our mindset for quality over quantity or schedules yet.
Yeah, good point. I reckon quality doesn't necessarily have to be high in volume. It just has to be something that really resonates with someone, is right for the target audience.
Yeah, make one great post a month. Like, do something like this twice a year versus these mediocre blog posts every single day that you talked about, right? That's what you need to do. Nail something once a month versus, you know, regularly throwing out garbage that no one cares about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing so much value with us. What I'll do is I'll pass over to Pam. Pam, perhaps you could introduce Joel just now as he has come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we can hopefully move back to the other couple of guests that are due on.
Yeah, we have a couple missing persons, so we're going to do things out of order, which is totally fine. So Joel, thank you so much for being here. Joel Comm is an internet pioneer, New York Times bestselling author, keynote speaker, podcast host, cryptocurrency and blockchain evangelist, entrepreneur, and eternal 12-year-old. Thank you, Joel, for being with us today. And what is your number one actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
That's all true, and thanks for having me. And I'll tell you what, you know, I think that mine is a more philosophical approach to marketing in general, and that is there's a lot of talk out there about, you know, hustling and grinding your way through to succeed. And I just want to remind people that you are going to have your greatest success when you are in your sweet spot. And your sweet spot is not the number of hours that you work. It's not about staying late or getting up early or working on the weekends. It's about doing that thing that really drives and motivates you and where you are having the most fun. I've reverse engineered my successes over the last almost 24 years, and all of the times that I followed the advice of hustling and grinding and, you know, nose to the grindstone, those were the times that at best I had moderate success, if success at all. But all the times I've hit the home runs have been the times with the least amount of effort. I know that goes contrary to what a lot of people are teaching, but I've discovered this to be true again and again and again. Follow your curiosity, be willing to take risks, and then trust the process, and you will discover that not only will you have your greatest success in business, but your greatest fulfillment in life.
Wow, that's some very good good and motivational advice. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. So you can find Joel over at joelcomm, which is COMM.com. All right. Well, we now have 2 Michaels up, one of which will be next and one will be next after that, and it's just telling me that your names are Michael, so I'm going to call one of you out. It's either going to be King or I'm guessing the other. Actually, raise your hand if you're Michael King. Okay, let's go with that then. All right, so Michael, as soon as I find his bio in the list, since we're out of order. Okay, here we go. Michael is might be the greatest SEO of all time. I don't know about that. We're going to have to battle about that later. But it does say probably. Michael, what is your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Don't trust any of your tools. And I didn't write that, so I don't know who decided I was arguably the best SEO, but I'll take it. Yeah, don't trust any of your tools. So I found that so many times that the tools that we're using, whatever data they're showing is so out of date. So let's say, for instance, you're talking about a link index for SEO. It might say like, oh, you have 40,000 links that are broken. Well, more often than not, I see that there's more than that. So take the time to download the links they have, crawl them, and see how big the issue actually is before you move forward. So there's a lot of opportunity in just further verifying what the tools say rather than just taking them at face value.
Excellent stuff. So I guess it was David who wrote that bio, and who I'll have to take this up with later. But what do you think, following up on your tip about tools, what do you think is kind of either the biggest challenge that makes it hard to act upon your advice? So I'm not articulating this well. What I'm getting at is one thing to just state a theory, and then it's sometimes harder in reality. So why do you think people get hung up on that the way that they do? Why is that hard to actually execute on?
Yeah, I think the thing is that one, especially in SEO, there's no standards, no technical standards. So tools don't adhere to the same thing, and it's very difficult to look at one tool and then look at another one and then compare the findings there. And so most people, they just take it at face value because they just assume that things work. But because my background is so technical, I've really looked under the hood at things, and I find just a lot of things aren't what they say they are.
I completely agree with that. Totally. All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for joining us. You can find him over at ipullrank.com.
Absolutely. I'm just reading Mike's bio that he sent me here. Sorry, it was slightly different. It was just greatest SEO of all time. That was the bio that he sent me.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
He was feeling particularly egotistical that day.
Confident.
Confident. There you go. That's the word I meant. I meant confident. All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Michael. All right, let's take the other Michael now, which I assume is the one with the French last name that I'm going to have to try really hard to pronounce correctly, because if I don't, it means I'm calling him a good little girl. So I'm going to try to introduce Michael Bonfils would be the American way to say it, and
yes.
Bonfils with the S means I'm not calling you a good little girl. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Very well could be a good little girl, so you never
That's
know.
a topic for another show. For now, I'm going to introduce you as an international search marketing veteran who has experience working with over 100 global brands in the last 20 years in the industry. So, Michael, thanks for being here. Please give us your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019.
Okay, well, there's always a lot, but the one that I'm thinking about the most these days is really around voice search. So, and because I do international, it's not just the generic voice search that you're thinking about, but thinking about using voice search in a multilingual world, right? So a lot of people, for example, just go to translation tools, Google Translate, or some automation or something like that. They translate their FAQs and so forth. Well, with voice search, if you're in Sweden and you ask, what's wrong with my laptop, Alexa, my Alexa's going to go off, and the Google, and every single thing in this house is going to go off in any second. But if you ask for it in a different language, you're going to get a response that's appropriate, right? And if your localized versions are just auto-translated, you may be missing out on a lot of opportunities. So it's time to look at all of your multilingual campaigns, make sure that they're done and written by local experts that are local to the ground. They understand their culture, they understand their language, and most importantly, they understand how people use voice differently than typing, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm trying to think of something good. Okay. A long time ago, I was seeing this girl who was Hungarian, and I had learned a little bit of Hungarian. I was going to meet her father for the first time, so I went over to her place. She introduced, opened the door, and he's standing there, and I introduced myself, Michael Bumpis Bajok, right? And he goes, oh, and he said his name, and then he said Hojj, which means how are you, right? And I said, immediately, because it was hot, I go Meleg. And then he looked at his daughter and patted her on the back and said, good job. This guy's perfect for you. And so I'm like, that was weird. And then she's trying not to laugh, and I sit down and I'm like, what is so funny? And she goes, Meleg does mean hot, but it also means you're gay.
Wow.
Okay. So
well, that's another demonstration, as is your last name, of the importance of paying attention to detail in translation.
I could have talked about my last name instead, right?
Well, I think those both drove home your point very well, and it's a great point. Multilingual campaigns is always tricky, but now we have the voice thing to contend with, and how the spoken word is different than the written word, and that's an excellent thing for people to focus on in 2019.
Search. Remember, people search on voice search with long tail, right? So they're looking for longer versions. I mean, if you speak to Germans, they already search in the long tail, but they'll even speak even further in the longer tail. You talk to other people in different cultures, they'll mix English with their language because it's easier, right? So if I'm Panamanian, Spanish might say raspberry instead of the correct word for raspberry. So there's all of these idioms. I mean, Sweden too. A lot of times, Sweden has a whole dictionary on Swinglish, where words where they just give up in Swedish and just say it in English mixed into their Swedish discussions. So these are all important to think about, So looking at all of this stuff, preparing for voice search internationally, I think is something to start thinking about for 2019.
Absolutely, and I'll quickly add to that, voice markup is something else to pay attention to in the voice search world. But for now, that's all the time we have for you, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find him over at seminternational.com.
Thank you.
All right, next up we're going to go to Alex. Alex Moss is an online marketer, a WordPress developer, and a bar owner. That's a unique mix. Alex, thanks for joining us. Please tell us your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019.
I was going to say voice search, but then Bonfield comes in and from me. But I don't know, maybe someone else yesterday said it. But I guess I could probably extend onto what Michael's saying, because I've been looking a lot around the Medic update, and we were saying about content and the way in which people search through voice. It's becoming more about not just typing in a very short tail keyword, but there's now more intent to a search in general, not just in voice, but in typing. So I know that the Medic update has to do with not just content, but the relevancy from the searcher's intent. So my top tip would be very much to look at the way that your site architecture works and the way in which people intend that search to be. They're basically finding the answer rather than I'm just making a generic search. So again, using Michael's reasoning here, you know, how do I fix my laptop? It's, you know, you have specifically something to do and you need to get it done, and that's the intent. So instead of just having a generic, here's a bunch of stuff that may be wrong with your site, it's here is how to fix something that's a problem. And I think that is very much everything that is going to be around content-based marketing next year, or the primary subject anyway.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've been hearing about voice search for, it feels like several years now, but it also feels like something's different heading into 2019, like it's really here now or something. Would you agree?
Yeah, very much so. I think I heard a talk in London by Semrush were doing, or Search Metrics, I'm sorry, whoever it wasn't, but they did a conference and someone talked about voice search there, and they said that next year, as in 2019, voice search will actually overtake native, you know, typing searches. And the guy said, that's rubbish. So I told someone else at a dinner party who had nothing to do with marketing, and he said, I completely agree, and I'm actually surprised it's not happened sooner. And the difference between those two people is that the friend had children. And he said that all children, they're not really typing in search terms anymore. They're asking echoes, and they're asking Google Home, you know, what that search term is, and therefore they've already got an intent. And the way in which they're searching as they grow older, that's going to be their inherent, what's the word? It's like their habit, essentially. That's what they're going to do, and that's what's going to come naturally to them. Whereas we're already the old hat. You know, we're already, you know, when we were laughing at our grandparents having black and white TVs, keyword search, as in typing, is basically the black and white TV of SEO, or will become that. And our kids will then ask, oh my God, you actually had to type to get an answer for something, you know?
Wow, that's incredible. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but thank you. Now I not only feel old, but enlightened as well. That's an excellent point about how this next generation is going to grow up speaking to their technological devices as opposed to typing into them. Really, really good stuff. Thank you, Alex. You can find him over at firecask.com.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next up, we have Mitch Joel. Mitch is founder of 6 Pixels Group, an advisory, investing, and content producing company focused on e-commerce and innovation. Thanks for being with us, Mitch. And please tell us your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019.
Well, I got to make sure that I'm on. Are we on good?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, I think I'm going to follow a little bit on what we're hearing from Michael and Alex, but I would take it to a more macro level, that just sort of brand voice. Like, what will be your brand voice strategy and your unique positioning in this world? You know, as Alex mentioned, his data, the data that I've seen out of Gartner is that they're predicting that about 30% of all searches are going to be done without a screen in the next 2 years, and that sort of pace seems to be going where it's going. But that's, to me, an important function of like where we're going to go with this. But the bigger story is that this is 100 million smart speakers that are going to be sold by this year, end of 2019. Close to 60 million US adults actually currently own one form of smart speaker. There's 1 billion devices that provide voice assistant access today. And again, I think search is going to be a big driver of that. We've seen that with the sort of first generation level of the web. But to me, what's more important is what's your actual brand voice strategy? What does that voice sound like? Is it going to be a talent? Is it going to be a celebrity? What gender is it going to be? How are you going to evoke and tell stories in this place? Because right now, you know, this whole bucket that I call smart audio isn't really interactive, right? You ask it a question, it responds, and it sort of dies at that point. But it's going to start treeing out soon. It'll start asking you back questions. We're going to get to a point where the AI can really sort of mimic the voice and really be somewhat responsive and conversational. And the ability to tell stories in that sort of Q&A and, you know, intent by the consumer is going to be just massively huge. And people say, well, how huge, and is this all hype? I don't believe it is. Right now, from what I've seen in recent stories, Amazon Alexa's team is 10,000 people right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
This is real. Yeah, this is real and growing fast.
Wow, that's a good fact to drive that point home with, and I think it's an excellent point that this voice search stuff is going to continue to evolve, especially towards conversational. You know, as the prior guest noticed, black and white TV did evolve to color TV, evolved to HD TV. You know, we have to think about the way voice search is going to evolve and not just stop at our current understanding of it. It's obviously 10,000 people on the Alexa team at Amazon is going to continue to evolve. So
yeah,
excellent,
and the
excellent
models
stuff.
Yeah, and the models aren't really there yet. Like, we don't know how it's going to be monetized. They're talking about subscription. You think about keywords, those are called invocations, like how you invoke the device to tell you what you want. Are those going to be ranked the same way that a Google paid ad would be? We don't really know. So Alexa, which is dominating the space right now, is talking about sort of a subscription. I guess we're looking at conversion-based way to monetize this, but the rules haven't been set. So I see this as early days of land grab. Think about SEO back in the day, or think about domain grabbing back in the day, and that's exactly where we're at. Because right now, if you use these devices, they're great, but it's barren. There's not a lot of great content there yet, and there's a huge opportunity, especially if you can combine it with really compelling talent to make this work for your brand.
Absolutely. Excellent, excellent stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find Mitch over at 6pixels.com. All right, David.
Incredible content shared there. Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Thank you so much, every single guest that contributed today. But thank you most of all, Pam. That's a wonderful hosting session from you as well. You did a nice bit of juggling with different guests appearing at different times. Always fun when that happens there, but you did a very professional job indeed about it.
Thank you.
And I loved the different angles there. A lot of talking about voice and about language as well. So really interesting how it just happens that subjects can be grouped together like that, because the different guests that book on to these 5 different slots where the shows are happening are just booking randomly. We're not actually selecting topics beforehand. So it's quite intriguing how that happens. I'll just leave the last comment actually in relation to that to Kevin Anderson, who just commented saying, I call brand voice your personality. In 2019, having one will be an asset. And people were talking about that before as well. Mark Asquith in the previous session, they're talking a lot about how adding your own personality into your content will be what makes the difference and really what lifts you head and shoulders above other people producing similar kind of content. But in terms of yourself, Pam, we can't let you go until you've shared your tip as well. So, Pam, just before you head off, what is your #1 actionable digital marketing tip for 2019?
Sure. So I'm going to call out something that may seem like old news, but I want people to be aware of a recent twist on it. So that is that Google wants your sites to load faster. And they've been talking about that for a long time, actually. They've been talking about that since 2009, so almost a decade now. And in 2010, they incorporated it in the desktop algorithm as a search ranking signal. And last year, in January, they announced, and in July, they implemented it. They incorporated it as a ranking signal in the mobile search index. So I think that a lot of people are aware of this by now, but the recent twist is that when Google announced the mobile search algorithm update in January and said it was coming in July and then implemented in July, a lot of people were using Google's tool called Page Speed Insights to test their site speed, both on mobile and desktop. And that's all well and good, but that tool actually only tested for the presence of page speed optimization best practices, not your actual page speed, not the actual number of seconds it takes for your website to load. And that's actually what Google supposedly uses in its algorithm. And so the recent update is, as of November 12th, Google has changed the Page Speed Insights tool to use another tool called Lighthouse that does actually take into account the exact number of seconds it takes for your website to load on both desktop and mobile. And they emulate a 1.6 megabits per second connection for the mobile test, which is really slow compared to what most of us actually have. In the US, actually, most people use Wi-Fi on their mobile devices, so they're around an average of 18, 19 megabits per second. On the mobile internet, if you are on a true mobile internet connection here, you're still probably in the 12 to 13 megabit per second range, but Google wants you to optimize your sites for 1.6 megabits per second. It's really hard to achieve. So I think a lot of people may have used PageSpeed Insights prior to the July update or at the July update and got decent scores and said, okay, I'm all right. I think they'll be very unpleasantly surprised if they go test their site again now, but they should, and do what you can to optimize for that really slow mobile speed.
Superb. Wonderful information there. A great public service announcement almost there, and just test your site for this, because so many people design their websites and they test it on the devices that they commonly use themselves as well. But unless, I guess, they're seeing things from a search engine robot's perspective or from users who are using different devices or in other locations, different speed of internet, they're not going to get the full picture from that. So a really important thing to be thinking about. Pam, it was great for you to join us today. Pam's also very good at brand marketing, and Pam, you've usually got your Pam and Marketing sign in the top left-hand side. Now, you're pointing to it there. However, you may not be aware that on the Facebook live stream, there's a big logo that's on top of that, right on top of you on the screen. However,
Wait, let me move it.
There we go. There we go. Evan, you can see it now. But I thought I'd mention your brand a couple of times there just to tell people Pam and Marketing is where you can find Pam, and also you can find you over at the domain name pamandmarketing.com. So thank you again for joining us. It was great, great session. Just about everyone showed up. We had one guest not up here, I think, but it was a wonderful session. So thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me. This is super fun.
Superb. And thank you also to everyone who's been interacting on Facebook. I really appreciate you sharing your own comments as well. If you're watching us even on the replay, please share this video. It would be great to get as many people as possible to consume this content as possible. Of course, we are going to have upcoming live streams in the series. This was the second of 5 live streams, all similar in nature, but having different guests on there sharing different tips. So you need to catch the next 3 as well. If you sign up to the live alerts at digitalmarketingin2019.com, you will see those alerts. 2 more reasons to sign up to alerts there. First of all, the series is also going to be published as a series of podcast episodes. We will be publishing them on the Digital Marketing Radio podcast, which is available online already. You can subscribe to that in your favorite podcatcher, be it Apple, Android, or something else. Search for Digital Marketing Radio, and then whenever those episodes are published, you'll be alerted. And another reason that you have to subscribe to the alerts at digitalmarketingin2019.com is we're publishing all the tips in a book in late February. So you absolutely have to get your copy of that. We'll alert you to when the date actually is if you are subscribed to those updates. But in the meantime, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live today. Until tomorrow, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.